Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope this finds you well. And happy 4th Bitcoin halving. In about 10 hours, we have the 4th Bitcoin halving. So I think the question on a lot of people's mind right now is what happens to Bitcoin after the halving? Does it go up? Does it go down? And I've got a lot of different charts here to look at today, so we can try and better make sense of things. I've got a Kaspa chart later on. And the one thing that I noticed recently, as far as looking at near-term, low time frame price action, I wanted to talk about these channels here that we have, where an interesting zone confluence at 59,000 is leading me to believe that maybe the correction isn't as steep as some people think if it does break down, and maybe it doesn't necessarily just immediately pump to new highs. It might potentially, and this is just purely speculative of course, it might potentially continue sideways for a little bit right here. We could say even 26 days, about a month maybe, before, we'll see, purely speculative, 59,000 being maybe the bottom. I would love personally to see it get back above this midline and continue higher, but we do have the confluences of this ascending channel here, with 59,000 being the meeting place for this descending channel that we find ourselves in. We also have these moving averages, which could move up in time and come into this zone at 59,000. And then if we take a look at Fibonacci's, we draw it right here, we can see that it's not too far away. The 4.236, 56,000, perhaps that acts as support. Maybe we get a wick or something like that and kind of get back into this channel and do something like this, and then work our way up and out. So this is just one possibility. As we can see, if we look at past halvings, the first halving, pretty noticeable increase directly after. The second halving had a bit of a sideways extended kind of just price didn't do too much for a little while after that. Second halving there. Third halving, kind of similar, sideways. So going sideways after the halving, as you can see, wouldn't be atypical. Really, the first halving was the only one that really just continued pumping up. That may be a little bit hard to see if you're on a phone watching this, but if you are on a computer screen, you might have an easier time. And in good faith of the Bitcoin halvings, if we do continue to stay bullish, we could potentially be looking at some upside. The timing on that, of course, remains to be seen. If we follow the Bitcoin halving schedule, the peak could be in 2025. If we do this one theory that people are also keen on, the left translated cycle, which as of now, everything's been ahead of schedule. The Bitcoin halving is coming after the Bitcoin all-time high, so things have been moving at a more rapid pace. If we continued to the upside in the more near term and did something similar to the last all-time high, 119 days after the breaking out last cycle, we saw the first peak. If we did something similar, it could be this summer. If we do similar to last Bitcoin halving, over 300 days would put us sometime next year in 2025. Looking at some Elliott wave charts here as far as potential upside targets if we stay bullish. If we just mirrored the last cycle, we would be looking at somewhere around 200K, judging by the 5 waves and the Fibonacci extensions that Bitcoin reached last cycle. If we also look at the S&P 500, we can see, and this is important even if you're not in the United States, because the correlation here is pretty plain to see, and global liquidity all ties in to really all, just the entire landscape and affects crypto and Bitcoin. So if you look at the stock market, U.S. stock market, you can see that anytime the S&P 500 back tested its previous all-time high and continued higher, it also led to increases in the price of Bitcoin. One could say that it is more significant to look at the Bitcoin halvings, but in any case, we are getting a Bitcoin halving right now, right as the S&P 500 looks to be possibly coming down to test its previous peak. And if it continues higher, that will be good for Bitcoin. In the near term, as I showed here on the first slide, potentially we could see a little bit of a lull, sideways action before continuing higher. And if the S&P 500 comes down and tests that, perhaps Bitcoin right here, as you can see, zoomed out, this is Bitcoin. It may come in and hit this zone at the very least. We could speculate that's a possibility for moving higher, and then we are looking at these potential upside levels, which really are just a full Fibonacci extension, which has happened before on Bitcoin. You can clearly see that Bitcoin is capable of reaching the 3.618 and the 4.236. Caveat to all this would be that Bitcoin launched at the bottom, Pico bottom, after the 2008 housing crisis. And the U.S. stock market has been in a constant bull trend since then. We had a bit of a scare right here the past couple of years in 2022 when Silicon Valley Bank and there were some bank collapses and the crypto exchanges were going bust, FTX and Luna and all that. But we had this huge, beautiful cup and handle. I posted on Twitter, maintained that things were looking bullish because everybody was so bearish, and when price was right here, nobody wanted to buy, and people thought actually that some people, not me, some other people, some of us were bullish here, but some people thought maybe this would be a moment when things would correct and we would get maybe a big pullback down to here or something, right? But that never happened. What happened? It broke out. So when you have a nice technical pattern, sometimes that's more important than the macro doomers out there just looking for something to be bearish about. So I prefer to look at TA. Sometimes that tells you all you need to know. And even just on the recent price action, you can see right here, we got this nice descending channel, which showed us that we were going to get potentially like 61,000, which we got. I actually, in the Ski Bum Trading Discord back in March, mentioned this level, 61K. Also likened it to the pullback that we got in the last cycle after Bitcoin made an all-time high. It came down about 16%. And what did we get here? We got about a 16%, 17%, a little steeper, pull down into 61K. And additionally, in the Ski Bum Trading Discord, I threw up this very nice looking descending channel and mentioned that Bitcoin had not yet touched the bottom of it. So it looked like it was going to potentially come back down. Not that I wanted it to happen, but what did happen, it actually did come back down to the to meet this lower line of this descending, or like sideways channel, slightly descending channel, and now it's coming back up to the midline. So what happens next? We'll see. Maybe it bounces off this midline, comes back down, and meets all of this confluence in here at 59K. Maybe that's the bottom. And then maybe it's off to the races if the stock market can continue to hold this level and then pump higher. And then we're looking at potentially the 1.618, 2.618, et cetera, and so on. The one caveat would be that there are times when the S&P 500 does in fact not do so well, when there is, this was the tech bubble, this was the housing crisis. So we do need to be mindful of that there are times like that in the world. And obviously, if you're investing, you don't want to be overinvested. No, this is financial advice. Things don't necessarily need to be going up forever like they did seem to do here. Sometimes we do get a correction like this. And zooming out on a longer chart, you can see sometimes things aren't always so great. We just need to be mindful of that. As far as Kaspa goes, we're looking to turn this midline into support, and ultimately the top of this ascending channel into support, or descending channel, the top line of this into support. And if that happens, then we can be excited about some higher levels here, potentially as high on this next swing, potentially over 40 cents, could even come up to 50 cents, because that's a nice psychological target. And so that's looking pretty good. We just need to kind of flip this. You can see how price tends to come down and test the lower side of these levels of these channels before eventually flipping the midline, coming up and continuing higher. And if Bitcoin can hold and continue higher, it's going to be really good for the rest of the crypto market, especially the stronger coins like Kaspa, which have really nice fundamentals and completely fair launched and proof of work, really strong fundamentally, and has done very well. You can also look at the timing of the last big accumulation phase on Kaspa, which was about 216 days. A similar length would put Kaspa out into the summer sometime before it continues higher. That's just if it repeats, but it doesn't necessarily need to repeat. It could very well do something sooner, but at the same time, I think it's wise to not have expectations that it needs to break out anytime soon, especially when we look at what Bitcoin is doing right here. It could get rejected by this midline, come down and find support in the 59,000 level before continuing higher. So when we come back and we look at Kaspa, to have a longer mindset on it, I think is wise. We could potentially break out higher, but at the same time, if you set your expectations too high, you're going to be disappointed with that. So I'm not necessarily expecting a breakout imminently, especially as we look at the S&P 500, and it is looking maybe like it wants to come back and test, looking like it maybe wants to come back and test its all-time high before continuing higher, which would affect pretty much all of crypto. It would cause Bitcoin to come down. It might cause Kaspa to kind of continue to go sideways, or it could come down. We'll see. Maybe people get really good prices to DCA at. We'll see what happens, but we just want to be prepared for all the scenarios. And I think it's wise, considering that every time the S&P 500 broke out, it generally came back and tested its previous all-time high a few times. And the S&P 500, or sorry, the NASDAQ as well, you can see it kind of comes down and retests. So just wise to be mindful of that, and not have expectations that are like too just unrealistic. Things don't necessarily go up forever. You can have a long-term mindset, and I think that is a healthier mindset, and allows you to kind of stay in the market longer and not get too emotional about it all. So that's kind of what I see. I think it's everything so far is looking pretty positive. There's nothing yet that I see that leads me to believe that we're going into an extended bear market or anything. Although it is the idea of a triple top. Obviously, you just want to be have that on the radar, just in case something like that did happen. And as I've always said, just don't be overinvested in the markets, and keep enough money outside of the markets so that you can sleep well and not feel too overly invested in what happens in the day-to-day. So with that said, if you guys enjoyed this content, please click like on the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and drop comments down below the video if there's anything that you'd like to see or want to see me expand on. If you want to see more Bitcoin charts, more stock market charts, or more Kaspa charts, whatever it is, drop a comment, or where you think price is going, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That said, be well, take care, have a great day. Thanks for watching.